Technology software is much easier. All right, we're good. We're live streaming? Cool. Awesome. Hey, everybody. I'm Jamie. I am one of the co-hosts of EdinburghJS. Esteban is the other guy in the red top, and Alan's doing live streaming. So welcome to the meetup. Really nice to see a large crowd of people and some new faces. Lots of people with different experiences, like some people who are experienced with JS, different languages, people who dabble a bit, and people who are wanting to get into it. So it's really nice to have a mix of people in the room. First things first, I have been contacted by a couple of people who are recruiting. So I just, before I forget, wanted to say that there is an agency with a guy based in Scotland who's recruiting both back-end and front-end engineers. He sent me the details a few weeks ago, so I don't know exactly what kind of recruitment state there is. But if you're currently looking for a role, then let me know. And the other one is Eden Scott, the recruitment agency. Andy Marshall there is recruiting for a UI engineer. It's quite a competitive salary. It is remote for a company that are based in Leeds. So if you want details of that, then ping me a message, preferably via Twitter DM, and I will hook you up with the details. Also, if you're recruiting anyone, or if anybody watching is recruiting online, send me a message and I will retweet it to people, because there are jobs available in the community and I know that some people are looking for them. So tonight we've got 3 speakers. We've got 2 kind of community intros. That's the thing that I think is good to do for you to get to know other attendees of the meetup, kind of hear about careers or side projects and so on. And then we've got Paul, who's speaking about service virtualization and kind of testing and stuff like that. So that should be quite exciting. Which now means Kelly is going to do a little community intro and tell us all about herself. Cheers. Take it away.
Hi. Okay. So I'm Kelly Jones. As you can hear, that I'm not Scottish at all. I'm actually born and bred in South Africa, but I am half Welsh, so I'm representing that Jones name as it comes. I am a software developer, which means I'm in the right place, which is good. I currently work for a startup called Substantive Research. We're a fintech startup that is based both in Edinburgh as well as in London. Because we're a fintech startup means I absolutely have no idea what we do. We're pretty much, long story short, we pretty much help research investment managers kind of help benchmark their prices, which is a load of finance words that still don't really mean too much to me. Our stack at the moment is a Laravel PHP stack on the back end. We use Vue.js in the front end, and we use obviously Sass to keep it all nice and pretty. So that's pretty much where I am right now. To kind of give you a little bit of background about how I went from all the way down south to all the way back north. I got my undergraduate at the University of Pretoria, which is in South Africa. I got my Bachelor of Information Science, specializing in multimedia. To put that in a bit of layman's terms, it's pretty much jack of all trades, master of none. We kind of just dabbled in everything. We went from web development to visual arts to publishing, which I haven't used once, but we went all the way into data structure and algorithms with Java, as well as C++ to Minix 3. But obviously in our final year, which most people actually do this degree for, we did game development, which was pretty damn awesome. But we also did a little bit of 3D animation. That's where I kind of fell in love with a little bit of that side of things and decided to go off the beaten track. I did my postgraduate, which does a little bit different in South Africa compared to how it is in the UK. But it's kind of like a master's. But I got my Bachelor of Honors in Film Arts, specializing in 3D animation, just to spice things up and get away from coding, which I didn't actually end up doing. My final year project was a virtual reality film because I couldn't just leave coding alone. So that was all good and dandy, but I knew I actually had to leave South Africa. I had a good British passport because I'm a Jones. So I came to the UK, kind of big-eyed and bushy-tailed, and had a good time finding a job, which I'm sure everyone has experienced once in their life is not that easy or fun. So I kind of job hunted a bit and fell into this opportunity, which I didn't realize was probably going to be one of the greatest decisions I've ever done. But it was a graduate scheme And what it does, it was pretty much like a boot camp. Now, at the time, I didn't really know exactly what it meant, but it was a 6-month boot camp to kind of help you and prep you to become an entrepreneur, to build your own company. They kind of whip you up and say, start your company as you go out. So day one was a little bit of a shock to me, but I was all like, screw it, let's do this. So I did the boot camp, and then that ended up me being the CTO and co-founder of my own company, which was a bit crazy if you look at my CV from postgraduate to CTO. It was an amazing opportunity. It was too many words to kind of fit into just one talk. Learned a lot, probably the most I've ever done in my entire life. Would highly, highly recommend it to anyone. But long story short, I actually had to leave. It's got a little bit messy in the end, which doesn't matter if it ended on whatever note was. I took it as a learning opportunity. I think the biggest thing I actually learned was how little I actually knew. I was I was recruiting for a tech team without actually ever being in a tech team. So I was like, okay, maybe I should start at zero. So obviously, at this time, it was the beginning of 2020. What a year to be unemployed. It didn't end up, it was supposed to be a gap year, but I kind of got stuck in South Africa for 3 months. That kind of just trickled down into a spiral of me, not planning. But end of 2020, I ended up getting this job, where I am in now. So I've been there for about just over a year and a half. I started as a junior. I now been promoted to a mid-level developer, which has been great, but which also means I have all my hands in all the pies as usual, doing everything at once. I wouldn't put myself as either front end or back end. I'm kind of a bit of both, but I do enjoy making things look pretty. So I sometimes do end up doing a lot of the front end. So what I decided to do is, I don't really have any small projects at the moment because all I do is work. So I decided I kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit into Vue.js, because I realized that it's about, being here, it's not really quite common. React obviously overpowers. So I thought I'd do a really, really small little project into Vue.js. It's a tic-tac-toe. That doesn't work. But hopefully it can kind of just get you into this. I want to put a disclaimer up front. I've been doing Vue.js since I've been at this company. So this is all very new to me as well. So if it all looks absolutely horrible, just go with it, okay? So this, to kind of what it is pretty much this. This is tic-tac-toe, where you're able to put in a block a tic-tac if you play a 1 or play a 2. As you can see, you've won, but you haven't because it doesn't work, but it's fine. You can reset and pretend that did, and you're like, yay. So I kind of wanted to show you just what it was like first, but to kind of go into the code of how Vue really works, it's not really too different from React. It's the same idea of setting up components that can be reused, obviously, and to keep your code almost in a single responsibility as possible. So to start off, there's 4 files that I'm going to show you. There's obviously a few more that go behind the scenes, but I think these are the most important. You start with your main one, which is app.js. And what you do is you create a component that you want to slap in there, and it renders it, and that's your tic-tac-toe, right? So what I wanted to do is also add a little bit extra on top of Vuex, which is a state manager. I don't know if there is, I'm definitely sure there's an equivalent in React, but what it pretty much does is sets global variables, so you can grab it from whatever component that there is. So this is kind of what it looks like in Vuex, where you create the store, where you have your variables, such as player, which I've set as 1 to begin with, and you can mutate those variables throughout, such as you can change the player, which if it's player 1, make a player 2. If it's not player 1, if it's obviously then player 2, make a player 1. And then obviously you can get that player throughout anywhere in your code, which is then good to kind of get into the view of our tic-tac, which is this little component, is this little code. This is where it's mostly all built up. As I said, this is really not 100% great, but what I've done is just pretty much create a multi-dimensional array, so a for loop and a for loop, just to create an almost a matrix where you can kind of pinpoint where everyone is, just like tic-tac-toe. And added a tic-tac block, which is another component that controls the block in itself. This is what it looks like. And what all it does is just says, okay, put an X if it's player 1, put a 0, a 0, an O, if it's player 2. And if it clicks, then you kind of say, okay, great, add it to the main component and put it into the game's play. This is what we do with the emit. So we kind of just emit it back up to the parent, and the parent says, oh, that's wonderful. And it will play the game, which it doesn't do. But it would if it was going there.
You can't play the game, you just can't win the game.
You can't win the game. You cannot win the game. Yes, the game can play, but you cannot win. Or you can win and just, yeah. So that is just honestly just a very, very, very quick example into Vue. And what we mostly work on with us in Substantive. And I'm not going to lie to you, that's pretty much it. I'll give a thank you. That's me. Oh.
Cool. So it's really good to hear this. It's nice to hear about your career and stuff. And if anybody's got any questions, stick up your hand. But I'd like to ask the first question. Yes. What do you think the difference is between, say, coming in as a junior and then being promoted to mid-level? I mean, was there certain certain things that you had to learn? Was it technical skills, or was it working with teams? What do you think that was?
Good question. I think it was more like taking a bit more responsibility. I think when going in as a junior, it's a little bit of hand-holding, which is great. It's perfect. I think it's the best thing to do is because you have no idea what you're doing. And it's nice that someone walks you through. And then slowly but surely you start realizing that you're doing things more by yourself. And you've got more responsibility of getting tasks done. And then when mid-level, that's kind of more that less hand-holding stuff and being a bit more, okay, this is my code and this is why I've done this. And not being like, oh, I have no idea. Cool. Which still happens, but yes.
Do people have questions for Kelly? But Conrad, of course.
Thanks so much for the talk. Really interesting. And also, obviously, seeing your tic-tac-toe, I thought it looked great. Obviously, we don't have a winning yet, but that's cool. So how does that differ from the work that you're doing day to day? So, like, obviously, day to day, you're working in Vue, but how does building this little tic-tac-toe app compare to the stuff that you're doing day to day?
Tic-tac-toe is a lot more fun. No shame. That's hard on what I do. I love what I do. What we mostly do is we have a data team in London. They kind of collate data, clean it for us, and what we in the tech team is take that data and kind of put it into visuals that our clients can use. So we kind of create some algorithms, pull that in, put that into our client database, and then we display it. So a lot of Vue is kind of taking, using APIs and putting that data into something a bit more visual and a bit client consumable.
Like a dashboard.
Exactly. This is what we do. We have a dashboard that we give to our clients where they can see all those pretty numbers and pretty graphs.
And so when they click buttons, they can update the data, and it's like, oh, okay, what's like January's data look like?
Yeah. So to not get into too much, but we're currently working on some market data stuff, and we're comparing market data providers. So you'll be able to go through every different provider, and we'll show kind of like the graphs of like how you and your peers compare with each other and stuff like that. Yes, that's what we do.
I have one more. One more. What's the team makeup like? So are you working in a product team, or like do you work with other devs? Do you have UI and UX people? Like, do you have to do it? What does it look like?
So we're a huge team.
Okay.
We're three. There's only three of us on our CTO, which makes us four. So we're tiny. So we pretty much do everything.
Are they all devs?
Yes, that's us. That's the development
devs,
team.
okay.
Yeah. So the whole company consists of about I would say we're about 15 at the moment, and everyone else is in London, and that's sales, data, and management, and everyone else. So all three of us are here, doing our best.
I have many more questions, but
You're more than welcome to chat later.
Can you tell me if you ever work with React or not?
I haven't actually worked with React. I've only I've downloaded a course on Udemy because I feel like it's time that I get on board. But that is as much as I know of React.
Okay, I ask you that just because I wanted to know what is the learning curve of Vue.
To be honest, it's a little steep, but as soon as you kind of grasp the idea of like components and the structure of it, because I think that's the hardest bit. Everything else kind of comes quite intuitive, especially if you know. So my prior knowledge, I remember the first JavaScript thing I did in university was very big be all jQuery. That was it. That was a big wow. And then you come here and you're like, okay, we can like split code up and put into components and things. And I think as soon as you get to that and you know that other kind of Java and like JavaScript knowledge, it all actually fits in a little easy. So I would say steep, but then smooth sailing.
Thanks.
I've got a question. How is it that you plan work if it's such a small dev team? Does it get allocated to you? Do you discuss tickets? What is your kind of day-to-day?
So we have a agile / scrum / we kind of mix it all into one. The thing is that because we do
stand-ups and then
review. Yeah, we have a stand-up to talk about what we're doing today, which never ends up what we're doing today. Because we do so much, it kind of always feels like you can't help it, other things just like take over. But we do stand up every day and kind of say, okay, what are we working on today? We kind of have a clear goal that we obviously need to do, and then what we do, break up tasks. We have a Jira board and slap that on and just make sure that we're helping each other through.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any more questions? Yeah, at the back.
So you just stepped on your new role now as a mid-level developer, and all your Vue experience. There is any other JS technology or other technology that you would like to learn and put your hands on?
Like technology in general? There was a talk, literally, was it last week or not? Is it D3? Yes, I would love that. That is kind of what I'd love to do. And it's been on my, when I have time, which I don't, that's what I'd love to do. I think React also, as I said, there's a course waiting for me to happen to like get through. But I feel like, especially with JavaScript, like as long as you know the basics, whatever else you kind of build on top of it, it's always just like a little learning curve, but it's not too far off from the knowledge that you already know. So. Kind of where I am.
Cool. Any more questions? Conrad. All right, Esteban.
Yeah, I'm from the Jones clan as well. Yeah.
Yay!
So yeah, would you have done something different to get to your current position if you could?
No, and it's a strange one to say because it was absolutely crazy how I got here, but no, I learned a lot, and I've loved the startup world. I think that's the best way to learn. I think I'd love to get back to a CTO position. That is the goal, the end goal. And I think the best way to do it is to be in a startup because, as I said, like we just do everything, and we know kind of all the workings out of a company. From it's not just what's happening in the tech world, but what's happening in the whole company. From strategic decisions and stuff. So I don't think so, because I think if I did just get straight into probably a good big corporate job, I don't think I'd ever think or feel the thrill of a startup. So I'm gonna say no and say I did the right thing.
What was your experience like coming in as a junior in a startup? Because for most juniors, you're like, I want to be somewhere bigger where I've got the support and so on. So what was the recruitment process like? And then maybe your first like few days in the company. What was it?
I guess, to be honest, coming in as a junior was, as I said, it looks a bit strange on my CV. I go from like the CTO to a junior developer. I wasn't really too fussed on my role. I kind of was more worried about the company, and this is what they were offering. I obviously had a lot of previous, development experience, so I kind of feel like I wasn't completely junior, which I think I had a little bit of an advantage with being in a startup, because it's kind of throws you in the deep, and everyone's like, this was supposed to be done yesterday, and if it's not done, it's kind of on you. So I guess I kind of had a little bit of an upper hand on that front. But to be fair, I think it's more really about the company that you choose. Like my company was just so helpful with whatever, and I was all like, I have no idea what's happening. They'd be like, okay, cool, let's just like pause, let's get you up to scratch, and then let's go.
And did you have to do like a code test to go in, or what was the interview? What was the interview system, process like?
Yeah, we had to do a code test, which was a view, which I literally learned like a minute before the test. I was like, I know what I'm doing. And then they hired me. I was all like, shoot, I really need to know how to do view. But yeah, we did a small tech test, and then obviously after that we kind of reviewed it. I think it was a 3-step recruitment process. You know, initial interview, then tech test, and then the final interview with the CEO, and then get offered the job. So. Yes.
If anybody wants to recruit Conrads,
there's like several of us looking for jobs, so that's why I'm super interested in like.
Well, I mean, to be honest, actually, so we're probably hiring within. I don't want to say right now, but within the next few months. So I will definitely.
Cool. If you tweet at us, then we will retweet. So
keep you guys posted as soon as something's up.
Cool. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Kelly. Everybody, give her a round of applause. Do I get set up? So just to give you a little heads up of what's happening. So next month, I think it's the 24th. So it's like, if that's the Thursday, that's when our next meetup's going to be. We need speakers for that. So if you want to do a technical talk about something that you know about, a project that you want to demo, or you want to do a community intro, just if you've got a little interesting story, or you work for a startup and do an interesting project, then please do let me know. I think Esteban will be hosting the next one. So either give him or me a shout and let us know that you want to do that. Yep. What else am I going to say? Yes. So after that, the December meetup will be a social rather than a tech talk. So I'll organise like a kind of pub night and then kind of, I don't know, wear Christmas hats or something, see what the vibe is, and then we'll restart again with talks in the new year, probably in January. So yeah, if you want to volunteer for anything like that, please do let me know. How are we doing?
Sorry guys, my laptop.
Oh dear. Just going to pause for 2 seconds while
Have you ever thought of doing like 5-minute lightning talks? I know Tech Meetup have tried to do it, but it always goes down like a lead balloon.
Well, you know, you're on live stream. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever works. I think, you know, if there's interesting topics. I mean, we've had people chat about like different technologies and like kind of history of tech, because I think I find it quite interesting hearing, you know, how things are developed rather than just like new things. So, all good.
Great.
You'll set up.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Welcome, Israel.
Hi everyone. My name is Israel. I came from El Salvador. But 3 years ago we moved to Glasgow, and yeah, to start doing something, because we are in a situation where we didn't have the chance to work. I put myself in doing something. The first of that was going to classes, English classes, the Glasgow City College, and I'm doing an ESOL course there. Yeah, but sorry, I'm really nervous. Okay, thanks. Okay, my community talk for today is about one tool that I create and a team for a graduation project create. for a charity called Bike for Refugees. They bring bikes to people who didn't have chance to get the money to buy bikes. So this charity, I know the charity just because I was trying to get to obtain a bike from them, and I was volunteering with them, and I noticed that they have an issue. The issue that they have was, but I don't know if I have to. Sorry, guys. I think it's in here. Yeah. I will be talk about them later. Well, or maybe now. Sorry, I'm a mess now. So, so this is a team, but I don't know where is my phone. So, okay. I begin to go to ISO classes in the City College. I get to know this charity called Code Your Future. They teach me how to code. I started with them in April and graduated the last February. For the graduation project, I present to them the idea to help a charity called Bike for Refugees, and this is my teammates, Huda and Tara. They helped me to create the base of the project. They just, these girls helped me to do the database, helped me to do the a little bit of the front end. But after 1 month, the project end and the graduation goes well, and I graduate with them. But I wanted to do more for the charity, and I stick to them, and I said to them, I will try to make it work, because we didn't send anything, or the application at that moment, it wasn't working. It just looked good, but it wasn't working. So now I can go a little bit. So the problem was, now, I think I am on track now. The problem was this. This charity has a queue for 600 people waiting to get bikes. These people need to be called and arrange a meeting for them. Like, hey, do you want a bike? Yes, I want a bike. I'm waiting for 2 years, because it's the queue goes 2 years back. And I saw the problem, and I said to the guy who was in the workshop, I can help you, and I can help me, and at the same time, because it will be my graduation project. And he said, yes, but how? And I said, we can send message to the people to get them to get the bikes or hand over the bikes, but we need to do it in a simple way, like just sending a text message with a link. They click the link, they choose the time and arrange the day or whatever, and then that's over. But because to book an appointment for them took like 20 minutes or more, and that is a lot when you are working in a charity where nobody is there, nobody is volunteering for them, and you need to fix bike, you need to stick with all the problems around the workshop. So I did that, and he said, okay, sounds good, okay, let's try it. So after the graduation, I stick to them. I try to do my best to put all the things working, and so this is the solution that we did at the beginning. So we create a database, so he can see which one is the last who required a bike, and then with just one click we send message to them, and then the customer can book their appointment. So this time, sorry, I think, sorry guys, I need to go here.
Live demo going to happen.
Okay. So now you're able to see yes. So I'm at the moment I'm trying to log into the website that I did or the application that I did, and I hope to get the ad. How do you get the ad in Mac? Sorry, guys. I'm using Linux.
Shift 2.
Shift 2? Good. Amazing. Wow. Amazing technology. Yep. Again, Shift 2.
Is this for having a complicated?
Yeah. No? No. Sorry. No, what happened? Oh.
There's other keys that are different as well between US and UK.
Sorry?
There are other keys that are different.
Ah, yeah, that's true. Thanks. I think that was okay, but no. Oh, come on. That's my name, sorry. So oh, good. Thanks. Thanks, Lord. So now how can I zoom this? Okay, 1 second. I think I can. So because Jamie told me to not show any numbers, so for that reason you see the font 07, whatever like. So what we're doing, what you have in here, you have a list of people waiting for, not waiting because some of them have the booking status in different ways. So let me just load one client to show that works. I hope so. Yeah, it works. Okay. Okay, that's me. And what I offer to them is to load all the people who need bikes in their list because they have a Google Sheet for like with 600 people waiting, or they had it, or okay, now is lower. And they can upload, they can choose which one is about to receive a message, and also they can see all the stuff around them. And after you click this and you have the chance to check your the message that you want them to receive. If you want it, you can change it, but it's just that. Okay. So now I am here, contacted, like before my booking status was just waiting. Now it's contacted. So, but you will say, okay, that is not amazing. I know this is just a list, but for them, what is my point in here is for them is a big challenge just to contact one person. So now they have the ability to load maybe 30 persons per week, send message, and then, but let me pick my phone. I don't know what it is. That is. So I get the message. The message that I received was just this one. So I think it's, well, so this is the people. I don't know if you already have a message from Royal Mail that your package is already. Yeah. So you click the link and you are like pointed to this website or web page, and then you can select just the date that you want it. At the moment, we are restricted some dates because we are not delivering bikes on Saturday and Sundays, and some hours. So if I pick 27, and then I have to pick an hour, and then I have to confirm my appointment. So this is what people see after booking their appointment. So you can, the number is not, sorry.
I do that on my laptop all the time as well. I bought a new mouse and I make people clicking the dictionary. Stop that.
So what we are seeing here is just information about your book. Your book is done. It's done, and you have the address. If you need to come early or something like that, you can book. You can call us or send email. And at the end, you see a QR code. I did this just because sometimes people reached the workshop and said, "Hey, someone called me and said we have a bike for you," but nobody called them. So this is the way that you can trust the people already get the message, and then what I need to do is just scan them or scan the code. But I didn't show you the calendar. So another thing is if they know if they already send the message, they wait for people to book their appointment, and then they can go to the calendar to see how many people they have for the next week, and they can arrange all the bikes that they need to do that. And I don't know if it's possible in here, but yeah. So what I need to do is just show this, and client is verified. Oh. And wow, okay. So my booking status is complete. So that's it. But is this enough? Is this something to really looks very simple, but for me it was a great experience because I came from nothing to do with coding, just support, technical support, administration, everything in IT, but never tried to code because for me it was a scare. I was thinking that people is super intelligent, and in my country it's a well-paid job, but nobody wants to take it. So I don't know why. And I was in that place also. But for me, it's a great opportunity to learn, and it's the way that retrieve or give back a little bit that all that the community give to me. So it's what I'm doing at the moment. They are saving at least 3 hours per day using the software at the moment. They are already checked that, so it's something good for me. And what is the future of this? They wanted to do. Sorry. And then let me show you something. After you get your bike, the message that you receive, if you click the link, will be different. And also, if you didn't came at the right time, or you, the message always will be different, because I made some logic about the days for your appointment. Like, if today left for your appointment, you will receive an SMS. If the day that your appointment took place, you will receive another message, hey, this is your appointment is today, come here. And if you didn't show up, the message that you will get will be like, hey, you didn't show up, so what do you need? What do you need a bike or not? Just that. So is what I did. And so the future is they wanted to do repair or mechanics appointments. So we will use the same approach, using the same link that they already have. And they also wanted to link the Google Sheet directly through the app to not to if we reach the point when the queue is clean, like nobody is waiting, we will try to. No, I already did it, but I didn't say it to them. But the Google link, I have the Google link to the database. To if anyone book, if anyone claim or wanted a bike, that bike will be, or that place will be in the database for the bike for refugees. So, so there is no need for CSV uploading file or something like that. So that's it. And what I'm looking for, what I'm doing in here is I wanted to get more experience. I wanted to get how can I say this, like if somebody wants to check the code and say, hey, this is totally bad what you did, and I am open to that because I wanted to do my best and to learn more. So that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. So you're open for like help with this? Do they need more help?
Yeah,
are you looking for more developers?
I would like to have more help and like a mentee, or if they wanted to join to do some bulk work.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So if anybody's interested in helping out with that, then please do let us know. Does anybody have any questions about either, I guess, Bike for Refugees or Code Your Future?
I didn't say the stack, but I can say that. Yeah.
Cool. Loads of people.
Hi, so that was great. Like, I really enjoyed this presentation and the software looks really cool. What technologies did you use for it? Like back and front end? Is it React? Is it Node.js?
Yeah, the stack is a parent stack, Postgres, Express, Node.js, and React. But I will try to change it just because I'm using I'm going to use Chromebook for the next, I don't know, maybe 2 months. So I'm trying to go for Mongo, like a MERN React, MERN stack. And for this presentation, I have to, like the working environment at the moment is in Heroku. But because Jamie said, please don't show any numbers or real data. Yeah, it's Jamie's fault. But I learned from that because I deployed the old application in Railway, which is something new and free, or they have free tiers. And also I create a AWS account to get databases from Amazon for free. So I learned that. So that's great for me.
One more question. Did you ever thought about making this a mobile application as well? Because this seems to be kind of like more useful as a mobile app.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's the way that I see it is, if I can make this application just like a packet to share with more charities, because there are some charities that need to be in contact with their customer, if I can say customer. I would like to have this approach. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, so it's a great project, useful, simple. It's really great one. I wanted to ask, was it easy to convince the workshop to use your product, and what challenges did you meet in general?
Well, nice question. At the beginning was easy because they were really busy with, like I said, a queue of 600 people waiting for bikes. 2 years of waiting is a lot. So they said, yes, any help is welcome. So we started on April because the team that I showed before, they after the graduation they disappeared. I don't know why. But I stick to the charity, and since April I learned how to send the messages. I'm using a API SMS Works, which is a company who sells the SMS, and it was easy for me to get the permission of them, and also I was challenged to have clear understanding how secure the database and how to secure the login, because you see it was hard for me to log in. No, it's a joke. No, I'm using Firebase, by the way. I'm using Firebase to do the login. I'm using just that. Somebody told me, don't do the login yourself, use something from outside. So, and sorry, to your second question was?
What difficulties or what challenges did you meet?
Wow, I was alone. I was alone doing coding, and it was nice because I am the person who tried to solve it, and if it's not working, I will try it hard and hard and hard. And also my wife said, please go sleep. Nobody's paying for that, so go sleep. And but that helped me a lot, really. Yeah.
What was the most difficult part of the project for you to implement as a person new to software development in general? What did you struggle the most with?
There is two APIs, because I was afraid to get it, just because I was thinking, if I do something wrong and the API makes so much request to do the SMS, I will lose their money just because I will do like a 1,000 petition to. So that was one of them. The second one was to upload, and the deployment part was hard for me because, as I said, I was alone doing that. I am alone doing that. And Heroku gave me some issues at the beginning, but what I reached the point when I did it, I was happy enough. We also cut a cake at home because I was, this is the most important thing that I did. And yep, that was the two most difficult or the challenging part. Yeah. Cool.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that obviously if you're looking for feedback on your code, I mean, I personally am happy to give it. I like, volunteer to help organize this. So I like spending time helping people code. I mean, people have helped me in the past, so I'm willing to do that. And also if anybody else is like, how you get this thing where you're like, what is this problem? And then someone else looks at it and it's a 30-second solution for something you spend a day on. Things like that, I'm always happy to be a second set of eyes. So just either DM me on Twitter or if you've got my number, then WhatsApp me. And I'll be happy to help with that. And I'm sure if anybody else wants to help other people, let me know on Twitter. And if I get any requests, I will try and match people up. So that's really good. And I think it's great that your work will help people. It's quite a simple thing, but it will really help them. They save 20 minutes of time, they save a few hours a day. That's invaluable for an organization like that. So cool. Anyway, thank you very much, Israel. And
thank you.
Cool. So what we're going to do is, whilst Paul gets set up, we're going to take a 5-minute loo break. So it is currently 5 to 8. So if you could be back sitting in 5 minutes at 8 p.m. For Paul's technical talk. That's great. Thank you. we back online? Cool, awesome. Right, next up we've got a technical talk from Paul. I was overhearing Paul briefly at the last meetup chatting afterwards and saying quite a lot of interesting things about things that I think are usually quite tricky and difficult to do in either an elegant way or a way that doesn't cause immense pain. So I thought, as a topic, Speedy builds using service virtualization. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, thank you. Unpopular as well is testing and testing technologies. So I'm Paul Hammond, 33 years programmer and other things. I have 90 seconds for each slide, and I'm going to need audience participation to speed me up when I go off topic. I think there's people already volunteering for that role. So I need to, because I have, after the 12 slides that I have the live demo. So obligatory advert for my employer, Hymans Robertson. They're local to Edinburgh, Glasgow too, full stack, some exciting things highlighted in yellow for this team. Angular TypeScript front ends, super sexy build technology, NX. It's a directed graph build technology. It's kind of like Bazel, but a bit younger. It does a lot of things that shorten time in your build cycle. It equally works on your dev workstation and in the clouds. Loads of features to it. Testing's one of them. Cypress links to Storybook for hosting of components, and then automated testing's a breeze after that. We've come a long way. It's not a lie to say we're a 100-year-old fintech. Technologies have changed somewhat in 100 years, but we are, and we're growing 25% every year, and lots of roles, managers included. And there's some links there to get in touch if anyone's interested. So I'm going to redefine what the build is, okay? So to me and many people in my community, the build is everything that you could execute on the command line towards quality for the commits that you're about to push to main. So it is compilation, transpilation, the Webpack stage from TypeScript to JavaScript. Is then standing up the test runner. Could be Jest, could be Mocha, could be Cypress, could be Jasmine, could be something really old. And it's all the choreography of all the pieces necessary to pass that test. And the build is passing either on your workstation or in the cloud if all of the tests are green. There is no percentage of failing tests that are acceptable before you commit push, or before you integrate into main if you're arbitrating over something that's in pull request land. So every time I say the build, it's all of those things. It's not just the compile stage. That's controversial as well. Anyway, so what is service virtualization? For the sake of the build, your thing that you're making might be using something else that's over the wire. So the wire is an allusion to TCP/IP. It's maybe on your machine, or maybe it's in an adjacent area, some cloud or something shared within the team. It could be made by others. It could be made by your own team. It could be outside the company. Let's say S3 is a service that you would depend on over the wire, and you might have tests that use it, which gives you new problems because S3 is not free. Well, in some tiers it is. So if you're a full stack team, and I think I heard a lot of people earlier say they were, had some understanding of the fact that full stack is a real thing that we're all pushing towards. It could be the same team. So you're making the front end thing here, and in the same commit, maybe you're working on lower tier pieces, maybe the same language, maybe two languages, TypeScript, C#, Java on the back end, or Python, or something like that. So this idea of service virtualization is that we don't have a real version of that thing that's over the wire running. We have something that's not real for the sake of tests. So this relates to a very large field, which is controversial in its own right. Test doubles, mocking, stubs, 500 technologies across 50 languages, all saying that they're a good solution for mocking, right, at some level. And it's either like the smallest level, it's actually in your unit test, so it's the same process. It's no threads, no sockets, no I/O to file systems. It's just mocking against an interface and then an expectation in the test that follows. But in this case, we're not interested in the ones that run in Jest for like super small, quick tests. We're interested in the ones that talk about the wire, which is a very general purpose thing. Today, on Twitter, there was a small conversation. Somebody says, if you use mocks, you're not testing. Somebody else agrees. And Dave Farley, who's quite famous, co-author of Continuous Delivery, the very famous book from 2010, he says something, and I thought, oh, I could have gone online and written that. And I'm, as ever, thinking, that's really astute out of Dave's mouth. So just calling it out, and that was today. Here's a picture for the first time. The thing with red and green at the top is our test. It's either passing or failing. Hopefully always green. Right? Yeah, some smirks there. The blue thing is the system we're testing, right? It's in testing language, it could be called the SUT, system under test. Could also, in the modern era, be called the CUT, the component under test. That's what you want to test, and you don't want to test anything else. However, the blue thing needed a remote thing, and it's not going to pass if we're offline. So we have to connect to that remote thing with a credential and a URL, and we're going to go and use it, hit it remotely, and the blue thing will perform appropriately if that connection is there. So the representation we're showing is one where there's no service virtualization. So in testing circles, or development circles who are super savvy with testing, they would say this is slow and flaky. I could run it, it passes, I could run it, it passes, I could run it, it fails. And they go, oh no, what are we going to do? Then somebody talks about retry strategies, and you're in this hellish place of long and slow builds. And then at some point somebody says, why don't we just delete that whole class of tests and shave an hour off the build? Because it's inextricably linked with your throughput as a team is the length of build. Anyway, so we would want whatever this is to work on a ThinkPad, a Mac or a Chromebook, and we'd also want it to work in CI land, which is an allusion to GitHub Actions and Jenkins if you're from 10 years ago, and stuff like that. Circle CI. Anyway, so I promised to talk about the history of this rather than talk about the technology that I'm making. So the history isn't that old. So Java had a piece called wiremock. There you can see making a stub for something. There's clearly a path on some demo application, and then it says if we have this header and this request body, not everything has a request body, gets certainly don't have a request body. And if all of that happens, we will return a response. There's a missing parentheses there. Oh no, maybe, I'm not sure. It's a function call, and then there's a with status that goes with that, meaning says it's going to say 200, which everyone knows is success. And that's what it's going to do to the caller. And I'm not showing you the test code. Test code was going to do something through the blue thing that called that, and service virtualization was going to, instead of allowing the call to go to the real thing, it's going to send this response, but only if that condition was hit. So if it doesn't hit that condition, it's going to send something else, like a 500, right? If it was an endpoint that hasn't been mocked, and yet we're hitting the mock server. So anyway, so you don't need to know this because this is for Java, and this is an idiomatic way of programming a mock that is in Java. And there's many of them like that. But Java's wiremock was kind of first mover. Ruby started an effort called VCR. So VCR is the video cassette recorder that we don't have anymore because of the DVD era, the Blu-ray era, the streaming era. Anyway, so VCR was a valiant attempt to make something, and it was such a good thing in Ruby land, which was a super huge language 10 years ago, that it got ported to other languages. So Python twice, Go twice, Clojure, which is a Java language, twice, and then so on, right? So many, many teams decided we're going to port VCR to our tech, and that remains a compelling choice today if you wanted to do service virtualization. So it is record and playback centric, so there's a thing. This one wasn't, right? We're programming it in Java, programming the expected response. This one says, my test that's going to go and do a thing is going to cause an interaction, and VCR is going to sit in the middle of your test and the real thing. And it's going to store it somewhere so it can be replayed to make it faster and less flaky. So that seems like a good idea, very alluring. Record and playback centric. Now the grammar, which I'm not going to show you, for VCR is going to record something, whatever that interaction is, all the headers, all the bodies, it's going to restore it in YAML or JSON. I don't like that, which is why I went and made my thing, but we'll come to that later. 2010, mid-2010, mid-2010s. Not sure of the date, but Pact is a solid choice. It's multi-language again, so I'm not listing the languages this time. It's very stable. It's commercially supported through SmartBear. Now, maybe Seb Rose has come to this meetup before, but he's local. He's also involved in the Cucumber projects. Quite a well-known Scottish developer, and he's involved in the Pact work inside SmartBear from Edinburgh. The terminology that they use is contracts, right? So they talk about a contract between a producer, the thing you're trying to invoke from afar, consumer, you, in your SUT is the consumer, and they talk about contracts. And Pact actually provides technologies for both sides of that conversation. Code is elegant, it's terse, and it's very expressive. So it's a solid choice if you wanted something that's already made and has some wide usage already. Mountebank. So this is from a former colleague of mine. I used to work in ThoughtWorks. Brandon Byers still does. It's written in JavaScript. It is a node server in its own right, and it's a separate process. You stand it up, and it can do either a record operation of the real thing, or you can program it with JSON. You've got some choices there. People have made client libraries for other languages, Ruby, Python, Java. It's fairly solid. Brandon's written a book about it. But it is a separate process, and so I don't like that it's a separate process. Okay, so more history, but this time an unviewable list from Wikipedia. Each row is a different service virtualization choice. The columns, I don't think much of the column choices, but somebody who made this page has seen that most of the columns have been filled in. My thing's not there. I'm pretty sure Pact isn't there. Mountebank is there, but there's loads of other choices, including some startups that have been and gone, and the technology is no longer available. You can go to that one. Just search for service virtualization on Wikipedia and then click through to the choices, and there's lots and lots and lots of them. Anyway, so here we go. This is my piece. So I've been working on this for a few years. It's Servertium, so server, virtual, EM, right? It records to Markdown, which is the different choice that's been made to the other technologies, none of which record to Markdown. And you think Markdown's a text language for humans rather than a machine language for scripting. We'll see in a minute. I've engaged in multi-language EDC for this, which means it wasn't just sufficient to write it in one language, say Java or JavaScript. I had to make Python version, Ruby version. There's an Elixir version going. Somebody start a Haskell version. My buddy Charlie. I'm forgetting. There's one written in Kotlin. There's a lot of these, and we're trying to develop them all and move them forwards in the same timeline and keep them compatible with each other. So a team could record something in Ruby, Servertium, and then the playback could happen in Node.js Servertium. So the other choice we've made is to limit to just HTTP services for now. Some of the other technologies like Mountebank can record and playback binary conversations, whatever they are. But most of the things we're making are RESTful, kind of fits recording a text language. You'll see the Markdown in a minute, and then you'll be converts. The other thing we've limited to do is this is only a technology for tests. You couldn't make a virtual, your back-end thing as a Servertium deployment and it go and handle thousands of different types of IOs. It can't be programmed that way, or at least not yet. You'll see in a minute why it's important. So we want one recording per test method or test function or test scenario if you're in Cucumber land. So I'm using a term here, downstack. So if everyone knows what stack is, right? So your front end, your middle tier, your back end, downstack is the thing you're calling. So downstack web APIs, if they're not delivered yet, you pretend that they are. So you could be the front end team, hands typing your Markdown to represent the thing that the back-end team hasn't delivered yet. Similarly, you could have something that exists and you could be asking a service provider to change something. And they say, what do you mean? And then you just ship them back some Servertium and say, like this, we're using it already. This thing's open source. It's the only time I'm going to mention to get involved, but there's plenty of things to be done, small things, and I will pair with people over online if they need it. Be happy to see anyone push something forward, or even write another version of Servirtium that I don't control that is competitive with one that I did control. So I don't mind people going crazy and writing their own version of something just because they do, or just because they want to. Right, some more diagrams. We did the one on the left already. That is direct, right? So you're running your test, Jest, Cypress, something like that, and it's calling your code that you wrote, and that code is calling the remote thing that's slow and flaky. So that's represented on the left, so no Servirtium involved for that. The one in the middle is what happens in record mode. So instead of your blue thing, the SUT, hitting the real thing, it hits Servirtium instead, but it passes the same URLs, the same request headers, everything about it. All the posts contain the post body, whatever's in that. Servirtium says, okay, I got that, and it immediately sends it to the real thing, and the real thing replies with the real reply. But Servirtium records everything to, I'm using a database shape here, but it's not a database. It's recording it to Markdown, and you will commit that to Git. So Git is your database here. It's co-located with your tests. It's co-located with your production code. It's just another folder under Git control. It's branchable. It's reviewable in a pull request. Everything about it is normal way of working for a developer. So playback mode, right? This is the test again. The blue thing's identical. The struts, the component. Servirtium's still there, but this time it doesn't need the real to be online at all. It's just going to read, for every test, it's going to read a different file from it's not a database, it's just the directory structure, but it's going to read the right test from the directory structure, the markdown, and play it back in the same order to the SUT, which is under test control, and the test should go red or green on the same basis, regardless of the 3 modes you're running. But this one, playback mode, you could work offline. Like I'm online now through my phone. I could disconnect, and my test will still pass. Anyway. So next piece is demo. Somebody's going to have to remind me through the demo, how do we prevent recordings going stale before the talk closes, right? Because it's a big piece here. What I'm going to do now is escape out of the thingy. I did say WebStorm, but that timed out today. Rider is the one that's been bought for me. And although I have WebStorm on my Mac, I haven't brought my Mac with me today. So we're going to use the terminal inside Rider. Damn it. Oh dear, I pressed caps. It's not clearing. I don't know why. Right, so I'm going to run a npm test. You can't see it there, but there's 2 dashes in green. This is how you pass to npm test which of the tests you have you want to subset to. So I'm gonna run the direct tests. And this is the proof of whether the network works fine or not. It's going to be slow, but that's not a problem for me because I want to prove slowness in one sense. So I have 6 tests. They all passed. They're taking about half a second each.
Is the network on right now?
Yes. So I'm going to go and show you what these tests are. Everyone has seen Jest? Cool. I have a real service that I'm hitting. Actually, I don't. I used to hit a real service from the World Bank that gave you weather details for anywhere on Earth. But the World Bank, in their infinite wisdom, decided to take down this service in the pandemic, possibly because I was using it as a testing resource. And they counted me as denial of service. So I took my recordings that I already had and I recreated their service statically on GitHub pages. Just a bunch of gets, including some missing gets. Like, I've got some 404 responses in there. I also have a Docker version, but in this instance today, we're hitting GitHub. So that's expressed in outside of the tests themselves. Damn it. Go down a bit. Whoops. Before each, I'm instantiating the climate API. This is direct. I'm going off to that GitHub thing. Climate API is something I wrote in TypeScript that purports to go off to a well-known URL within the site, iterate over some XML, add all the rainfall together for a certain city in a certain time span, and then give back a decimal, right? That's its only job. And this is the type of function you would write in a firm, company, to do something that might call down stack services, but programmatically it just offers numbers or strings or whatever it is back to the caller. You've written something to hide complexity of remote service. That's what Climate TS is here. Climate Direct tests is invoking that one directly, and here's one test. It says test average rainfall for Great Britain from 1980 to 1999 exists. It's a badly named test. And it turns out, and don't ask me how I have managed to calculate this, it turns out that's the rainfall, average annual rainfall over a 20-year time frame for GB. So it's just under a metre. That's millimetres. So we've got an expectation there. Expect the result to equal output. Maybe I could do that in less lines of code. And it does it. It all works. And there's a few of those, including some that don't exist, like Middle Earth doesn't exist. You used to be able to go off to the World Bank with Middle Earth, and it would report it said it was XML, but it would give you back a character string that wasn't XML. And it's like, I'm going to faithfully reproduce that. You know, you wouldn't design that, but I might as well live with it if the World Bank has it. So Middle Earth doesn't exist. There's also some time frames that don't exist. So there's 6 tests. Each Ruby has this, the Ruby version, JavaScript version, the Java version, they all have it. So, but that was direct, right? So what does record look like? Record is the same test. You could do some work here to reduce the duplication. It's a different mode of operation, really, but it does some additional setup. Before all, we set up the climate API, but this time we hit Servirtium on localhost. So that's local.gd is an allusion to 127.0.0.1. Or that's how it resolves. But we also set up a Servirtium that goes to the real service, and that's going to start listening on port 61417. And then I'm going to set a bunch of things that I want to do that I count as important. I want to replace some header in the request. I want to do some things in the response headers. I want to do some things to remove headers in the response that I think are just too transitory. They're not important to the functionality. And then I'm going to start recording before the test is called. So there's the test. It looks at this. These 8 lines of code are identical to the one in direct. There's an after each which says, okay, we're done. You can write the recording. And probably that needs to be renamed. And that's just what the record one looks like. There's a playback, pretty much the same, but it doesn't need a reel. Lots of lines the same. I don't need to do any deletion of headers because that's already been done. And I can run them all in 3 modes down here. So we did direct. Recording is also going to require online all the way through to the reel. It won't be any faster than the other one. One test suite passed, 6 tests passed. Oh, well, it does look a little bit faster, but it shouldn't be. It should be slower because it's 2 TCP/IP hops. So the one that you've all come to see is playback. I could go offline. You're just going to trust me. And this one was reporting for the first one 30 milliseconds, and for second and subsequent 5 and 6 milliseconds each. So that's reading a markdown file, parsing it. It's not hard. Replaying it in stages to the caller. The caller doesn't know it's not the real thing. So what does the markdown look like? Everyone is asking. What were we looking for? GB 1980 to 1999. Okay, who's used WebStorm or any of the JetBrains products before? Anyone?
Use the Java version, IDEA.
IDEA, it's the oldest one. It's 20 years old. Been using that for 20 years.
Got the new version the other day.
Yep, they come thick and fast. All the JetBrains products use my open source, by the way, but not Servirtium. So interactions, everyone knows that the double hash in Markdown is a header and the treble hash is a lower level header, right? So we're using that programmatically and saying that interaction 0, because remember we start sequences at 0, is a hit of this relative API, this relative URL, We're going to, in a code block, code fence, we're recording all the headers. We note that for this get, which was what that was a hit on, there is no request body. Post, put, etc., all have request bodies. We can record those. These are the response headers that came back that I didn't delete. This was the payload. Now, this one is not pretty printed, but I have a feature that was added at the weekend, but I didn't do the NPM release, so I can't use it. I want to do soft wrap. The XML is fairly big, right? And you really wouldn't want to do that in one line that just goes 6 miles in that direction. You would want it pretty printed. So in the recorder, I have a set pretty print that I can't quite use yet because I didn't do the NPM release. Truth be known, I've forgotten how to do that. But there it is, there's the XML. It's not pretty, but it could easily be, and so could JSON. You can choose to pretty it, even though the original API upstream of you didn't. And if it doesn't change the functionality of the thing you're testing, why not? Pretty's good. There's one. What was the question I was supposed to be asked? Yes, very good. I'm still going to answer it, but later. And then there's interaction 1. It's doing several hits on the API, the web API, to go and get all this stuff that's out for this. Another block, a lump of XML. And the little library we wrote, climate.ts, was processing all this XML for the sake of a decimal answer to the caller. Right, so that's what the markdown looks like. Whoops. And they're all in there, 6 of them, and they match the test names, so we can pick them apart. It's open standard for what you want to call these. Could be the test name, or if you're in, say, Cucumber land, it could be the, something highly more specialized than that. It would work for unit testing technologies, for spec technologies. You get an open standard on what you want to, open choice on what you want to name your markdown files. Now, of course, they're markdown files, so that means when you commit them and push them and you look at them on GitHub, they're pretty. Same project, right? So now on GitHub, we were looking at mocks inside JetBrains product. Doesn't matter which one we look at. We click it, it's suddenly prettier. We have the code fence looking like a code fence. We have headers looking like headings looking like headings, and it goes on. That's not pretty, right? Because I still haven't done the pretty of the payloads, which would require release. So this is the thing now. You could say this is our API. Have a look at it. You could talk about it in the team. If somebody does a test set with a piece of functional work and is pushing that back through the pull request system, your senior engineer can take a look at it and say, I don't think that's right. Hair color shouldn't be a string, it should be an int. Or a enum, or something like that, right? What would you do? You do 0 for black and 1 for blonde, right? I don't know. Oh no, the other way around. No, hang on, oh, never mind. So it's in Markdown, which means it's now discussable. It didn't matter that payloads were XML, they would be pretty printed in line. It could be JSON, it could be YAML, it could be text, it could be XML. It doesn't matter, it's just going to record it. And Markdown is the perfect place to have breaks between headers, bodies, headers, bodies, headers, bodies, and have that discussable. So, what was the question again? Staleness, right? So we've recorded this once, but that was 6 months ago, and nothing stands still. So what happens? The upstream team, or upstack of us, they're downstack dependency, they've changed their thing and they didn't send us an email to say they changed it. It's very common. Or if they did send an email, we didn't read the email. So what do? How do we know that we're now developing against something that is diverging from the real thing? And the answer is we tactically re-record at intervals. And we check that there's no diffs. So imagine your minute-by-minute development on your workstation is use of playbacks. Unless you're making a new API call and you're probably the person that's going to record it. You remove secrets. You remove stuff that would be transitory. And you're going to put something in that feels like it's boiled down to the minimum of what's required for that functionality. But we could be adrift and months beyond when something actually changed and we didn't notice. So what we do is we set up a nightly or a weekly or monthly job, which is not CI, but it's in the CI infrastructure, that runs the record test suite, or runs the same test suite with record turned on rather than playback. It records, and it's in the cloud. It's a cloud workstation, a cloud checkout. And right at the end, if there's any differences in the mocks, it fails the build. So any difference, right? So one single character different from what it was recorded before, it fails the build, and it causes somebody, a lead engineer, to look at it in the morning and say, that shouldn't have failed, or that's an API change that we should be aware of, and we'll make a telephone call or send an email to find out why it changed. So your devs, your testers, all of you that are working as fast as you can on a direction will depend as much as you can on playback. Responsible adults will make new tests or call new APIs or delete ones because they think we've overdone it in test land. There's such a thing as too many tests. And will also tee up a job that will run on a weekly basis to see if recordings have changed, and then a process, room for human error now again, a process to pick up on the notifications of a failed job in the CI infrastructure. This job itself is not CI. It's non-continuous, but it is leveraging the same code base. It's just running in a different mode of operation, which means one more property on the build pipeline that says record instead of playback. So that's the piece that's new, is a dependence on something that could change and a trigger of change causing action within the team that owns the suite. And to my mind, Markdown is the right format. This shouldn't be a database. You can't check a database in. I can't branch a database. I don't want something central. I definitely don't want a mock repository that's over TCP/IP. Defeats the purpose. This is designed to run on your dev workstation. It's designed to work offline. It's designed to use brittleness to indicate a need for work. And there's one last facet, which was in the bullets, but I skimmed past it quickly. It's designed to be in process with the test runner. So your test, when it kicked off, you saw they were 3 milliseconds each. It might still be 3 milliseconds if it's bouncing Servirtium between tests. Because this is not spawning a process. It's not launching Docker. It's not requiring any previously launched Docker. This is all in process, which is where the multi-language idiocy comes from. We're not sharing code between the Java solution, the JavaScript version, the Ruby version, the Python version. Every team is writing that separately, and which gives them one good thing, which is they can do it in a way that's idiomatically correct for them. So, you know, Java's an old OO language, right? If you're writing in something that's closer to the DOM, you're not in that world. You're in a pseudo-functional world. You'll use functional idioms for writing your TypeScript solution for the same thing. One or two can't spawn a separate thread to listen on a socket, because this can't block the main thread that's running the test, right? You need both the socket listener and the invoker inside the same process. So that's not necessarily perfectly solvable. You know, lightweight threading solutions like Go has, Node has, you know, a mechanism for doing stuff asynchronously. It's all good, but not all languages can cover that. Either way, we know what the standard is. It's the Markdown spec. So, you know, call that ServertX. I don't care about the code. Anyone who's implementing this for any other technology can do it any way they like, as long as it roughly makes that ServertX. And we don't have a schema for that. There's no Swagger involved. It's just, hey, let's try compatibility testing between different recordings and different playbackers to see whether we're on track or not for one sort of unified standard for the Markdown. So if I had my way, this would be a big thing. I don't know. Who knows? You could all leave here tonight. Nobody could use it. I think it's a good thing. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm wrong many times. But there it is. So questions?
Cool. Thank you very much. To start with. That sounds absolutely amazing. Have you tweeted links to this recently? Because I've retweeted you. So
Yes.
if you check the EdinburghJS Twitter, you'll find links to these things.
I'll retweet all of yours. Yes,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome. But I
Okay.
do infrequently. Yep.
Cool.
I was working on this before the pandemic, and then the pandemic happened, and then so now I'm back to it.
Cool. Do people have questions about this? lots of people. I tell you what, I'm going to start at the start and the front and work back. So.
Hi there, really interesting project. I'm fascinated about the choice about using Markdown. I did a project that's complete an angle to this, which was all about doing code generation from recorded session stuff, and used HAR, which is used by the browsers.
Yep.
Why did you choose Markdown and not something like HAR, which is used by other technologies?
Yeah, sure. So HAR, from 1,000 foot, HAR is a zip, right? Unless it's unzipped, it's not going to be friendly to source control. Sure, that's maybe a tiny objection, but yes, I could have used HAR for this. But I like Markdown. GitHub renders Markdown straight away without any additional work being done or any plugin needed. Git will give you a pretty rendition of the conversations. Now, one more thing. Some of the technologies that were competitive with this record in JSON. But if the payload of the RESTful interaction is XML, what does that XML look like in JSON? Vice versa. If you were recording your service virtualization in XML, you could probably just make a C data for JSON, but you're going to start to get in this place where it's nested and indented, and you're starting to lose track, is it indented right or not? There's something very beautiful about Markdown as a format for this. It's not a machine format. This is ultimately designed for human eye debugging. And if we think about them as contracts, if my vendor, who's not Amazon, are never going to listen to you. Does somebody say they were from Amazon today? Somebody is, right? One Amazon employee. If I emailed you and says, could you change S3 like this, please? Do I get a response or no response? No response, right. Good. And it's not surprising. They're super huge and I'm tiny as a startup or whatever. But if it's a supplier that you're dealing with and you have some power, like a negotiation, or you're paying a monthly fee and you have a client manager, you could say, could you change the hair color to int from string? Like this. And you could ship them back a recording they might have shipped you in the beginning. So there's another feature, right? You're a service maker, you're a SaaS company, and you have licensees or integrators. You could ship them known recordings for tests that you've written in, say, in RSpec, right? And they're not an RSpec company. There's a couple of PHP people, I think, present. You're a PHP company with PHP unit. So you like the Markdown recordings, but you weren't going to run their Ruby suite. You were going to pick from the 22 or 220 Markdown recordings they gave you. You're going to pick the 4 that are important to you, codify them in a PHP unit invocation in your build pipeline, and you're going to guard that they're not changing over time. Same deal, right? Outside company. But if you wanted to change and you had a relationship with the vendor, you could say, please, could you change this to that and ship them back something they'd already shipped you. So suddenly you're talking turkey at the low level without misinterpretation on what the ask is. You're literally showing them a diff, even though you might be in a different Git to them. It still works.
Thanks for the talk. I just wanted to ask, when you showed testing code, you had the recording and the playback tests in 2 separate files.
Yeah,
and
it's a big
they're mostly
mistake.
duplicated.
Please,
Is it possible
please.
to have the same tests for
Yes.
both recording? Okay.
Please volunteer, sir, and make that case for me in Jest, because I couldn't work out how to make inheritance go on in that.
Okay.
It probably just needs to be one begin before each with a modal in it. If this, then do that, otherwise that, otherwise that. But what I really wanted was a extends or an override way of doing it, but that's basically because I'm a Java programmer who's struggled to learn all new technologies in the last 25 years.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. That's a great project. Yeah, I'm asking about, as I understand, you record as like you create right to the file as a Markdown, and then you read from there. How do you sanitize or I don't know stringify the data in body to not break Markdown? As I understand, you're parsing Markdown to read.
Okay, so full disclosure, the first version I did kept a cursor moving through the Markdown file, which was exceptionally stupid. The second and subsequent implementations was written by me, used regex to split Markdown. On see this line here, interaction, regex for number, and then regex for verb, and then a regex for path. with the 2 hashes on the front, you can reasonably expect is perfectly unique across the whole Markdown file. This one here is preceded with 3 hashes, right? You can't see it here. Oh, no, you can. If I hit raw, okay, we're going to go to Markdown, everyone. Brace yourselves. There it is. So I can regex match, not my stroke of genius, on that expression. I can do the same for this one. And inside those, right, I can regex match on the code fence. I can reasonably assume that the code fence won't be perfectly within the payload of some RESTful interface. I can't remember. We might have done a trick to allow double escaping or something. But there's an expectation that most functional I/O that you will do won't accidentally encounter the same very long Markdown headers and the code fence in itself bracketed with 2 new line characters. The code fence could be anywhere else in the payload, but if it comes with after a new line and it has a new line after it, it probably is Servirtium's own language. So it's super easy to parse, right? And the writing of it doesn't require any parsing at all.
It works also with, let's say, if your response is Markdown, and and you write it like a Markdown inside of the.
It probably would work if you tried to put Servirtium twice in the same sequence. Yes. I think I'd die laughing. But yeah, there's some things we don't support, right? Some edge cases, but reasonably, for 99.99% of all of your RESTful interfaces, it's going to be absolutely fine.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a very cool framework and tool overall. I was just curious to know if we could add this into a pipeline, and if you could add this into a pipeline using another virtualization as Docker, and not only on local machines.
Say it again, the last piece. Using Docker somehow. What was the word before Docker?
Virtualization.
Virtualization.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use Docker in this at all. I mean, it's possible, I'm sure, but I wouldn't want to have a slower cycle time on the running of a test suite. So the design goal was to be able to go into Jest, and then 3 milliseconds later, you've got Servirtium up. 3 milliseconds later, it's down again at the end of the test. So with Docker, I have a dependency on something in my build that comes up before Jest does, stays up, always available beforehand, but I think it'd be defeating the purpose of tying yourself to, the most important thing is the Markdown, tying yourself to the Markdown that's local to you. If there was a language, say Zig, a C-like language that's relatively young, and they didn't have any other way of doing it, they could probably choose an existing version of Servirtium and put it inside Docker, and it would probably be okay. But the feeling is that it's so easy to write a new version of Servirtium in any other language that you wouldn't do anything other than choose to write it. And so Pact has a module written in Rust, I think, that all the other language implementations use. But that foreign function interface to the Rust infrastructure, to my mind, for something like Servirtium is harder than writing the new thing. So reasons of speed, reasons of idiomatically correct for the language, for reasons of stability, because, inter-process communication or process spawning and then process killing at the end of a test job, these are non-trivial tasks. So I myself wouldn't use a Docker, but I wouldn't be surprised if people start to use Docker for deployments of Servirtium.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions? Awesome. Cool. If that's it then, please everybody give Paul a round of applause. Please, please, please volunteer to do a talk in November. Esteban and I are looking for people to speak, and I will see you in a month. Cheers.